Hello, and welcome to Talkin' Country. I'm your host, Bob Robbins. Episode 7 of the Ken Burns documentary, Country Music, takes us from mainstream success to the children of country music greats, to the outlaw movement. That's a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. Joining me tonight are Nathan Hunnicutt, president of the Arkansas Country Music Awards; Barbara Fairchild, a singer; Flap Jones, she's host of the Not Necessarily Nashville on KUAR; and John Rainey, he's the chief engineer at Rainey Recording Studio; and Charles Hames, a veteran country music journalist and historian. What a great show tonight, 1973 to 1983. And all my friends that are gathered around here, there is so much to talk about. I don't even know where to begin, Barbara.
Well, look, you want me to start?
Yes, would you? Will you start?
Well, and I tell you, 73 was a good year for me because that was the year that Teddy Bear went to #1, and it was nominated for a Grammy. I didn't win, but it's kind of like being in a wedding. You ain't the bride, you're the bridesmaid, but it's sure fun to be in the wedding. And it was such an honor to have that nomination and stuff. It was really...
Well, you did a lot of music during that period of time as well.
I did. So a lot of good years, and you know, there's a lot about Billy Sherrill on this program, absolutely. And he really was a wonderful producer, and it, you know, he was just a legend already when he worked with me and stuff. But he had such an ability to make you feel comfortable, you know, and it was interesting to see how he, you know, worked with some of the other folks on there and stuff too. So he really was a genius at what he did.
That's what made the music so good.
Right.
Nathan, nice to have you tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be
Pleasure.
here.
Go ahead. You were going to ask Barbara a question.
Well, I was more of a comment, but you said he made you feel welcome and at home in the studio, and I think
really comfortable. There's just something about his whole demeanor and how, you know, because when you, especially, you know, I wasn't a new artist. I had recorded, you know, I had about 3 albums or something before I did the Teddy Bear album, the one that was on. But moving over there, and I'd actually written a song, me and 2 ladies that I wrote with, and I'd do the demos. And so we sent, and of course, the publishing company, they'd send out songs, you know, to when they'd get a list of who's recording and stuff. So they would send these songs out, and Billy heard a song we wrote called "Love Is a Gentle Thing," and he really liked it, but it didn't fit any of his artists. So he kept asking my manager, you know, why don't you let me have Barbara over here and I'll record that song. So you never know what one song may lead to, you know. And he was, I mean, I was, you know, a little apprehensive because he was such a great producer, but I mean,
he really let he let the artists shine, their artistic ability, and John can talk about that, how important that is, you know, just let the artists be themselves and not overproduce.
Well, you just have to, like you said, you have to give them an environment where they can feel comfortable and they can really let themselves be a part of that recording.
You bet.
You know, and that's getting the right people around them, the right musicians, you know, the right arrangers, you know, and even the environment of where you're recording, the studios, you know, makes a huge difference in how you produce the albums.
And it's interesting seeing what happened with Waylon.
Yeah, the producer, they let them do what they wanted to do.
It took them a while for them to figure out who Waylon was, you know, but that was amazing to see.
The key to that is those guys negotiated for artistic control. Mm-hmm. So they could record with who they wanted, the musicians, they could record it in the places they wanted, and they could do the material that they wanted.
Right.
And you know, they weren't looking for these polished records that they were cutting in Nashville at the time. They wanted to cut it more raw, like what they played live, you know.
They wanted to be who they were.
Yeah, right. And that sound, that's what they were after.
Flap, what do you think? Flap.
You got it right.
We do. Been calling her all kind of stuff
today.
What do you think about the show tonight?
Well, I really related to this one because I lived in Nashville from 73 to 83. So I saw all kinds of great music. I'd worked at TGI Fridays on Elliston Place, next door to the Exit Inn, where I saw all kinds of great musical acts there. Down the road was Gold Rush. Across the street was a record store. I mean, it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. And you know, they didn't talk about Charlie Daniels much in this one. There may be, maybe previous episodes, but this one, it's kind of surprising because Charlie Daniels in the 70s, he could have been governor of Tennessee, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he still could be today.
He was so popular back then.
His biggest records during that time frame.
Yeah,
The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah, Devil Went Down to Georgia.
And of course, what a record, I mean.
Yeah,
still,
that's true. Yeah, it still
everybody
is.
knows that song.
Yeah, but that was, I could relate to this episode big time. I had a lot of fun in Nashville.
You know what made me happy in this show? Right at the start, when Marty Stewart was just a little whippersnapper.
Yeah, I love Marty Stewart.
And he said, I'm going to marry that girl.
Yeah, and he did. Still with her today.
They did.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, Marty Stewart is one heck of an artist. He really is.
Connie told me, of course, they're friends of ours and stuff, and she told me that, like, her and Marty wrote some songs together. And so they'd been, I don't know if they'd worked on the album or anything yet, but they were writing together. And so she said they wrote some stuff, and so he was leaving, and she, we hug a lot,
right.
And so they kind of just a little friendly hug there. And she said, I just love you. You're just one of my kids. And said, Marty stepped back and looked at her and said, I do not want to be one of your kids. And she said there was something about the way that he looked at me. She thought, oh, kind of thing.
What did you think of this episode, Bob? You've probably introduced every one of those people on stage.
Tonight's show, to me, so far was the best yet because, like you said, I've been there with most of them.
Yeah.
When I owned BJ's or was part owner of the nightclub, we had many of them play there. Hank opened up for us when we started, and of course the list of entertainers just went on and on. A lot of great talent in this show tonight. A lot of great memories that I personally have. Some of them I can share, and some of them I won't. That kind of deal. But Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way? That's one of my favorite songs of ever. And of course, we're talking about Waylon and he and Hank doing the conversation and all those kind of songs. I was glad to be there. And, Hank's manager, Merle Kilgore, was one of the sweetest, nicest men I've ever known. But, and Merle went back when they were nominating DJs of the year by the artist or their managers or whatever, he nominated me like 3 or 4 times. I'm like Barbara, I didn't win then. Yeah. But it was sure nice to be in the nominations, and Merle was the one that did that for me, and that all meant a lot. But I love the show tonight.
Oh, it was great.
And, I can tell you Hank didn't do it that way. But then sort of maybe he did.
It was fascinating to see this whole thing, the thing from when the Opry moved, and it just transitioned. It was seamless, wasn't it? And I know they was concerned about it.
That was the time when it all came down, the old Opry was out and time for the new.
And I'm glad they still use the building to do some things,
Yeah.
Let's talk about Dolly.
Well, you got to talk about I Will Always Love You, and leaving the Porter Wagner show.
The entertainment that they did in that show and all the songs they wrote. And, it's country gold.
Nathan, what do you think of all the change in the bluegrass, and then it comes back to being the...
Well, we how the stage changed locations for the Opry, and attitudes were, how is this going to work? We don't like it, or we do or don't like how it is, or isn't with the location, and then the style changes and how things are moving together, and the theme of will the circle be unbroken, and then the new circle is the old piece of wood on stage. for the Opry show itself. So you have all these changes coming about, and then you mentioned bluegrass. It's being the old Bill Monroe thing, and then coming to throwing the mandolin in with this new kid, you know.
Yeah.
Marty Stewart, there's a big, that circle being unbroken. It literally right before our eyes in that episode, you saw it.
Yeah.
The circle is intact.
And Ricky Skaggs.
And Marty's done so much,
Right.
and Ricky, and all of them
yeah.
done so much to keep that circle and to make it come back to
I
where.
guess you can probably put that circle theme into every episode.
Yeah.
Really,
It's just
you
kind of what
can,
country music does.
Well, let's
you
put
know?
it into my life and your life
Yeah,
if you love country
yeah,
music.
yeah.
You know, I thought when Porter said I signed the checks, you do what I say. That's pretty
I
stout.
can imagine that didn't go over real
No,
well.
Well,
That was the truth to some degree, but
She needed a raise.
yeah,
That was the problem.
I think that she knew how to get it.
Right.
She knew what to do.
you know, when they were talking about the controversy, you know, when they started to play the more pop stuff in the country field, some folks come over to see me because they formed an organization around that time, and they come over to my house and wanted me to join it. And I told them I would pass. I said, I mean, I get it. I understand, you know, why you're a little bothered by it and all that. But I said, there's not one of you that wouldn't want to have a crossover hit.
Yeah.
You recorded You've Lost That Love and Feeling during that time.
Yeah. But I mean, and then, you know, eventually some of them that become part of that organization had crossover hits
Sure,
too.
yeah.
And it's just, but I just personally did not want to join this, you know, because I mean, it's going to take the music, you know, to a bigger audience and stuff like that. And, you know, and looking at because music, it does circle and stuff, and it's like, you know, it come back to more traditional things when Ricky Skaggs showed up singing the stuff he did.
That was a great time.
Oh man!
Great
And I
time.
mean, I love the classic country. And just
So
like
do
he
I.
stopped loving her today, how you gonna get better than
I
that?
can't
Yeah.
beat that.
And-
That's the biggest
and
song
yet-
of country music.
Yeah, and yet there's room for all of it.
Oh, absolutely. Olivia Newton-John was good for country music. John Denver was good for country music. It was all important.
Well, it was important. Didn't last long.
Right.
Well, there's a wave.
That's
Yep.
right.
Some
Goes up
waves
and
are
down.
bigger than others.
But here come the Outlaws, and that changed everything.
Yeah, that's still a
Conway.
wave.
Conway and Loretta.
Oh, one of the all-time great duos.
We talk about Tammy and George. Can I tell y'all a little story? During the turbulent times, there was a lady named Penny Lane, used to be married to Red Lane,
Right.
great songwriter, and they'd been divorced for a number of years. And Penny used to do hair, you know, for TV shows and stuff. So me and her were really good friends. And when I went to Nashville, I'd stay with Penny sometimes. So I'd get over there one night and Tammy's there. And her and George has had a big fight. And so she stayed the night. She said, he was drunk, and he was tearing $100 bills in half and throwing them in the lake. And he had a big expensive ring. I don't know if she said she bought it from her or what, but he threw it in the lake.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and
That
so
went
she
over
was,
good.
he was so out of control.
Oh, boy.
And so she spent the night over there, but she was venting
Yeah,
a little
right,
bit about it.
right.
Bit. I'd have been a little upset at my husband if he'd have done that too.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of issues and stuff. And of course, they were both so talented.
Right. They're very.
And I'm sure it was interesting. I thought when she said, with Jeannie Seeley that said, and I think today that may have happened.
Yeah.
You know, when he
Right.
stopped loving her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, just
Somebody
wanted to
that-
throw that out there.
Yeah.
So-
Somebody that I enjoyed seeing in tonight's episode, Emmylou Harris.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a mother
What a
precious
What a
lady.
boy.
Yeah.
There's
Tucker.
been no female that has came on the scene and combined rock, country, and folk like she did.
Right.
And everyone loved her.
and
No,
her
I-
voice is what they said. You got to stop and listen.
Oh, yeah.
If she's singing.
Yes.
You know, all these artists that we saw tonight, all of them had some big music, and of course that's when the money and things started getting better. I mean, you like when Dolly went out, what you have, 5 #1 hits.
Right.
Porter didn't have none. So she could
now
see
she
real
wrote
quick.
checks.
That's right. She wrote the checks, and she could see real quick.
Sorry.
And so could he.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he profited for a long time, don't you?
Yeah.
And they were talking about the million selling records were, they happen now and then. During that time, they even said it was like a couple of weeks. They were. Yeah. That was just a golden time to really start selling a lot of music.
When Alabama and the Oak Ridge Boys and Barney Mills sat in late 70s, I mean, they started selling records.
Took it to the stratosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Arkansas kind of shined in this episode tonight, too. Charlie Rich, I'd say we shined.
Right.
Yeah. Might have been, that piece might have had a lot of shine in it. But,
right.
Not only
and Charlie's remembered for that, presenting the 75 Entertainer of the Year, but my goodness, look at all those hits he had.
Yeah, my sweetheart, Tanya Tucker, she was there.
Yeah.
Tanya's got a new
she
album.
Does. New album.
Very good album.
Yeah. And, I did a tour with her to Korea. And singing for our troops over there. So she had her band, and they had a band there for me. And nice people, but they, there is a trick to playing country music,
Right.
And these boys played more rock, and so it was a struggle. And so Tanya, the boys, her guys said, Barbara said, if you want to talk to Tanya, said, and see if she'll let some of us play with y'all with that band, we'd like to help you out. I said, I'd really rather you ask her, because, I didn't want to put her on the spot, and I didn't want her to feel like, well, I don't really want you to, but it'd be easier for her to tell him I'd rather you didn't. Anyway, so he talked to her, and she said, absolutely. So her road manager, after about 2 shows, that come back and says, this is just not going to work. This is just not going to work. And Tanya said, you make it work. She said, they're killing her out there. She said, and she needs good, the band to back her up, and said, you're going to make this work. I don't care how hard it is. And I really appreciated her for that. And we went shopping and filled a taxi.
Oh, Lord.
And I had my share of it, but Tanya had the other share. But we had a blast. She was so much
I'd love
fun.
to go shopping with Tanya Tucker.
She's Mexican influence in
I
music.
love her.
The Mexican influence.
Very much so. Johnny Rodriguez.
I love to hear that man
Oh,
sing.
man.
Johnny had some good records. Riding My Thumb to Mexico.
Yeah.
Didn't he
And a
have
great writer as well.
Oh, yeah.
We only have a few minutes left, and we got to talk about the outlaw movement.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, that's one of my favorite times of music through those years, too.
And I think there's still an outlaw movement going on today, kind of, sort of, because I keep thinking country radio, bleh, not so good, which was kind of happening in Nashville in the 70s. The reason this whole outlaw thing came about was because they didn't want to do what mainstream country was doing. Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of people today doing that very same thing. You've got Hayes Carl, great singer-songwriter. You've got Bonnie Montgomery from Arkansas. Emmylou Harris is still putting out stuff. And then you've got people that had hits in the 70s and 80s. Rodney Crowell, Roseanne Cash, and Dolly Parton even had their mainstream hits. But they went off to the side. Dolly did the bluegrass. Mm-hmm. So there's still outlaw people
and they're
out
still
there.
strong.
And
they're still strong in
and they're
music.
still strong.
They're still drawing crowds.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And as long as you have laws, you'll have outlaws.
True.
So stylistically, even the movement of outlaw country could change a little bit, but you still have the content, the substance is outlaw in a sense. But I really liked Waylon Jennings, the thump to his bass lines. They just had a very clean, powerful drive to them that didn't have a lot of messy background noise. It was not a lot of filler. And
that's how we get back to do what you know that you can do, and how you do it is what you want to do, and everybody loved it.
That's why ice cream
History
shops
made.
don't just have vanilla.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Black Sheep of Nashville, who was that? Y'all remember who the Black Sheep of Nashville was?
A lot of people probably
That's
fall
right.
under that umbrella.
That's the best way to cover it. 1972,
I'm
Hillbilly
sorry, I missed
Central.
the answer to that.
Everybody.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're talking about
I think of Willie
several
Nelson.
Black Sheep.
Yeah.
Willie Nelson pops up.
Black
in my
Willie
head.
and Waylon for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they really pushed that outlaw movement, and sold a lot of records, and had a lot of success. And like they said, then Nashville needed them.
That's true.
That's exactly right.
That's true.
It was amazing to me how many times the record company was wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And
Most of the
Willie was
time,
right.
wasn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were thinking with just the general way you should think about things. But Willie was definitely marching to a different drummer,
I
and,
loved
and
Willie.
he proved them wrong.
I loved Willie when he came into stuff like Stardust. Look at the albums that he sold.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Let's quickly go around and your opinion of tonight's show. And Charles, we'll start with you.
I think it was tremendous. You could really see how things were evolving. Artists were taking more control, and they needed to. It was a good thing for the industry. I mean, you can't have country music without Willie and Waylon. Looking back, and Hank Jr. and people like that.
Took them all. Flap, what you think?
Well, it just brought back great memories for me, being in Nashville in the 70s and discovered a lot of great music. I hung out with a bunch of Texans, and they're the ones that introduced me to Waylon and Willie and all of those folks, and it was just a wonderful time for music.
Okay. And how about you?
Well, the beginning of the episode started off with the train and Johnny Cash singing, and to me it kind of represents when it opened up. I thought, the music is staying on the track and it's staying strong, and the tradition. I thought about that, the lead up, because Ken Burns, he thinks about where the film is going, and I saw real quickly this was going to be a fun ride, and I enjoyed it.
Barbara?
I've said so much during the show, I think I'll just say that I love the whole thing and pass it to you.
We're glad you were here to say a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, John.
Well, the beauty of country music, how it can have an umbrella of all those different influences, and once again it showed how all that can be country music. I mean, country, rock, folk, and it all come together, a lot of it in that outlaw movement, and they really showcased how good country music can be.
Well, personally, for me, I think this was one of the best, like I said at the beginning, that we've had.
I agree.
I'm honored and happy to have had most of the people in tonight's show that I can call my friend, and have worked shows with them, been part of their shows, had a hamburger with them, sandwich, just laugh and talk.
Wow, you mean they really eat?
Sometimes. Hey, sometimes they did. Other times we were just thirsty for water.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the beverages.
Thank you for watching tonight. God bless you and be with you. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Talking Country.